So in September of 2009, a woman named Razakel, who's a musician, gets a frantic call from the mother of a girl named Melanie. And Melanie's mom is asking Raz, have you seen Melanie? Where is my daughter? Because Raz is part of a horrorcore band. It's kind of like Insane Clown Posse. Some of you might be familiar with that artist. That's the type of music that Raz makes. And Melanie, the child of the mother that's calling, is such a huge fan of Raz and her music and her friends, Sick Tannic and everyone else. They own a record label. It's called Serial Killin' Records. And this past weekend, there was an event. It was a horrorcore concert. It was called Strictly for the Wicked. And Melanie's mother let her go to this concert with her friends. And suddenly, Melanie stopped answering and she never came home. Melanie was so close with this band. She was a super fan that was featured all over their MySpace and their YouTube that Melanie's mother had Raz's phone number. And that should tell you a lot. This number was to be used only for emergencies because nobody wants their mother calling their favorite band asking where they are. And Raz has no idea where Melanie is. Raz saw her all weekend at that concert, and she never came home. Now, I'm gonna tell you guys this case in grave detail, but when you're listening to this, I ask you to ask yourself, do you really know the people that you're talking to online? And I don't just mean physically. I mean who they really are and mentally, because anyone can just type a couple of things, check in on you every day, say some nice things, and pretend to be anyone they want. We all know it. You can pretend to be anybody you want on the internet. But who are you really, and who are you really talking to? And what can possibly happen? So, this story is really important to me because so many of us are online and so many of us create these relationships through Discord and social media and Twitter and whatnot. And I've been online for many, many years. And I've met a lot of people that seemed like they could be a loose cannon. But it's just crazy to me how long this case went on before something happened. So, like I said, guys, we're back in 2009. There's a girl, and her name is Emma. This story just f***s me up so much because Emma looks like somebody I would have known. She looks like somebody I probably would have been friends with. And Emma is a girl who, her parents are going through a divorce. Her dad's name, I believe her dad's name is Mark. Her mother's name is Deborah. They've been going through a divorce, but they're still kind of co-parenting Emma. So Emma gets really, really, really into Razakel and Sick Tannic's music, and they make horrorcore music. Imagine ICP. I'd play it for you, but it's a little licensed. You could still look it up right now. And this music is very, very dark. I mean, like, if you just look up the lyrics to some of their stuff, it's all about literally killing people, sexually assaulting them. It's, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna cut you, horrorcore is my husband. I'm not kidding, like, this is it. But look, Emma's a kid, she's 14 years old, she's really, really into it. This band, probably as you can tell from the merchandise and the content, they don't give a okay? They don't give a about anything, and they have a pretty small fan base, okay? It's not small, but it's not huge, okay? So Emma somehow becomes friends with the lead singer because these are in the early days of MySpace. They had YouTube, they had MySpace. If you look at some of the videos from this case, they were posting videos back in 2009. They were very active online. So Emma ends up becoming friends with Raz. She ends up becoming friends with Raz, and she's telling her, oh my God, I love your music. I love everything you do. You guys have changed my life. It's so important to me. And Raz talks to her for a little bit. They kind of become homies, and Emma lives in Northern Virginia. And one day Raz says, yo, there's another fan that lives near you. I think that you guys would get along really well. And that girl's name was Melanie Wells, okay? So Emma and Melanie meet up online. They start texting each other and messaging, and it's instantaneous. These girls are best friends. And not only are they best friends and they're talking every day, whether it's online, on the phone, whatever, they live a state away. You know, Melanie lives in West Virginia, Emma lives in Virginia, and on top of that, they are the super fans of Raquel. They're the cool girls. They're pretty. They put them all over their YouTube. They put them on their MySpace, all their social media. They become really good friends. About 4 months after meeting each other online, Melanie and Emma end up meeting in person, and they go to a horrorcore concert, and they have so much fun. Dude, as a person that grew up pretty old, when I looked at their pictures of them, like in the back seat and whatnot, like they just look like best friends, and it really me up. Because if you guys saw any of the pictures of like me and my friend Kaylee this past weekend, we're both like alt or whatever, like this was literally us, you know? They become really good friends. And like I said, Raquel kind of starts parading them around because like they're pretty, like, you know, top super fans. And of course they didn't mean any harm. They were just trying to make the girls happy. And through this, a video of Emma gets posted to their channel, and she ends up meeting this guy. His name was Sam. Look, this is right up Emma's alley. He's 20 years old. He makes horrorcore music. She's 15, he's 20. She thinks he's cool. You know, actually, his music isn't copyrighted. You guys want to hear some of his music? This is his music that was released back then. The evil voices are actually anxiety, and like, you know, yeah, that's pretty much it. So these are typical horrorcore lyrics. They want to see me kill. They want to see me dead. And don't forget, guys, Emma thinks this is fucking cool. This is about to be her man, you know? He's older. He's like this is how he, like, you know, portrays himself. He's big, strong, and this is her fucking boy, right? Emma and Sam begin this relationship. They begin this relationship online. Like I said, she was about 14 or 15, and he was 20. And everything was good. They actually dated for a year, and they spoke every single day. They literally talked on the phone every day. Like, that's what she was doing. Homegirl was picking up the telephone in 2009 and straight talking to her boy every day after school. They were so close, and they knew each other so well. Sam and Emma are an item, and then Melanie's a good friend. I don't want to say she's like a third wheel because she's a good friend, but all three of them decide to go to this concert that I told you about, strictly for the wicked. This is the ultimate festival of horrorcore fans. Everyone's meeting up out of state. They're all gonna have a good time. You know, they're all gonna get fucked up, have some Faygo, whatever, do drugs, listen to music, blah, 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 blah. Of course, Emma wants to go. And so she ends up talking to her parents and begging them, because she's about 15 at this point. The parents are going through a divorce. She's going through a lot. And she, please, I need this. I need to see my friends. I need to see Mel. I need to see my boyfriend. I need to see Raz. Like, this means everything to Emma. And on top of that, if she didn't go, would she ever forgive her parents? So her parents really feeling that pressure. They're like, how do we let our daughter go, but make it as safe for her as possible? So the plan is that the father, they're separated, but Emma's father and Emma's mother are going to pick up the friends from the airport, and they're all going to drive to this concert. They're going to go there for a couple days, split up the hotel rooms, and then they'll come back home, and all three of them will hang out at Emma's house for a couple days, and then the friends will fly home. Perfect thing, right? I mean, how many of us have gone to conventions before? This is super, super normal. And for these kids back in 2009, oh my God, this is so exciting. So Emma's parents went with her on the trip. And on Monday, September 6th, Sam McCroskey left his house in California. And before he left, the few friends he had, he told them about his new love. He was going off to see Emma, the girl of his dreams, the girl that he was going to be with forever. Because don't forget, when you're 15 and you're 20, everything's real dramatic. It's love or death. It's we're together forever. It's addiction. It's adrenaline. It's everything. It's I love you. So this was Sam's idea. Sam was absolutely infatuated infatuated with Emma. It didn't matter what she looked like or how she acted when she got there. Like, this is his girl. This is his woman, his dream girl. So Sam gets on the plane and he flies out to Virginia. So Emma's parents went to go pick Sam up with Melanie, and they've all been talking for like over a year. Everyone knows Sam. Everyone knows his music. Like, Sam's f***ing cool. He's hard as fuck. And then they go and they pick up Sam. When Sam gets off the airport, Emma is just as beautiful as he thought she was. He's really excited. He's kind of actually like wearing his heart on his sleeve because, you know, here she is. This is my girl. And he's so excited to see her. But alternatively, Sam isn't what Emma thought that he was. He's way too excited to see her. He doesn't look the same as he did in his MySpace photos because back then there was no video chatting. This was just voice and whatever angle Sam took that day. And on top of that, he's just not cool. He's awkward. He's weird. He had kept his mouth closed in all the pictures, so his mouth was completely different. His hair was greasy. He looked like he didn't shower. He looked very unkempt. And so Emma thinks that her, juggalo knight of shining armor is getting off this plane. This 20-year-old rapper hottie is coming, and he's cool as fuck. He's cool, like just everything. And this is what she gets. This kind of like overly excited, overly attached, very sensitive guy. Because that's exactly who Sam really was. This persona that he had built up online, I'm gonna kill you, I'm a rapper, murder, 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 the voices in my head. This was all a persona that was used to mask the weakness and then the insecurity that he really had. Because what did Sam want? He wanted power. He was a very demure person that really didn't know how to communicate his feelings, but online, he could be anything that he wanted. He could be strong. He could be cool. He could be a rapper. He could be smart. He could be fun. He could be attractive. And he picked up all of these traits and he paraded them around to Emma, and he tricked her the minute that he got off that plane. Sam arrives, and Melanie and Emma immediately are like, whoa. It's a little awkward. I kind of implore you guys to imagine this. You've been talking to somebody for a year and you meet them and you are instantly unattracted to them. I mean, this is also kind of like disappointing for Emma, and she's also probably a little embarrassed that she's been talking to this guy for a whole year. That's what happens a lot. When you feel like you get catfished, you're embarrassed. You got caught. You got caught by that guy, But this trip is going, and it's a couple of days. Because remember, they're going to the concert, and then afterwards they're going back to Emma's house. And so the parents pick them up, and they drive them to the concert. And the minute they get there, the girls are so excited to meet Raz. Remember, I told you about Raz, the lead singer of the band. Even though the girls had met before at another horrorcore concert, now they're meeting their idol that has elevated them. And on top of that, these girls are the guys. Like I said, they were the pretty super fans that they were getting posted all over their MySpace and YouTube. So when the girls go to this concert, people recognize them. They're cool. They're like top dogs. Now, Emma's parents were there, okay? The situation was a little bit different. The parents did the best to protect. They made sure that Sam had a separate hotel room. He could not stay with the girls. He slept by himself. The father slept by himself, and then the mother shared a hotel room with the two girls. That's kind of how they split everything up. And this was perfect for the girls because Sam was really cramping their style. They were so confident and cool walking around these venues, and then here's this guy kind of like traipsing behind them. I cannot imagine how rejected Sam must have felt. And as I told you before, this is a person that has never learned how to communicate their feelings. They internalize everything, and that rage comes out in this form of songs about killing people and the voices in their head. This is a very angry person. And I bet you rejection from a pretty girl that he thinks he's in love with is a pretty big trigger. So the girls make it pretty obvious after talking to Raz that they don't like him. They tell Raz like, yeah, he's just not cool. He's just not what I thought. And so for the most part, they left Sam alone throughout this concert. Sick Tannic, one of the singers there, he said he doesn't remember a single time that they were hanging out with Sam. He was by himself the whole time. No friends, no nothing, in his hotel room by himself, not hanging out with them in the parties. This is the opposite of the fantasy that Sam had in his head. And that's why I also urge you guys to think about who you're talking to and what fantasies they're creating about you inside your head. Because once that fantasy is created, you have absolutely no control over it. At the end of the concert, they just want to get back, okay? And for the most part, Emma and Mel have not been hanging out with Sam through this whole thing because they just think he's weird, okay? I feel like he catfished us. Let's just get back. And so this car ride back, it was about 8 hours, is one of the first times that they had to spend hours with him. And they didn't want to. I can only imagine what that energy was like in the car. The two girls having one of the best weekends of their life, sitting there next to this guy, all cramped up in this little 3 seats in the back. It was just like, okay, let's just get back. So the other thing to remember is Sam's flight, it's about 3 days later. So they're driving back on this day, but he's going to be at the house for a couple days, and so is Melanie. This is a little bit different than they planned. They thought that it was going to be 3 days after the show of them all hanging out and having the best time. It's the first night, and things are exactly as they were back at the venue. I almost wonder if Sam was holding on to some kind of hope, like, oh, her mom is staying in the hotel room, so that's why we can't hang out. Maybe when I get back to her house, maybe we'll sleep in the same bed. Maybe I'll hang out in her room. And it was just, they were never mean to him. They never sent him home early. There was no inclination that they were rude. They just kind of kept their distance. And Sam was really, really feeling that this whole time. Let's go back to the beginning. You remember? I told you in the beginning when Melanie's mom was calling Razikel because she hadn't heard from her daughter. Well, when Melanie's mom calls Raz obviously flies into a panic. Where are the girls? Where are my girls? She just met these girls. She invited them out to her concert. She knows them, and she knows that other people know them. So Raz gets off the phone, and she tells Sick, yo, put a beacon out. I need you to find the girls. Tell everyone that they're missing. And so they start hitting up other fans, and they're trying to find the girls. And Melanie's mom is calling her, trying to get info. And Raz is really invested. She's like, I'm so sorry. Like, this is how close they were to this singer. The mother had her number, probably for safety reasons, but that also demonstrates how scared the mother was at this point because she knew that she didn't want her daughter to call the singer unless it was absolutely necessary. But at this point, Melanie had been missing for almost 2 days, and this was completely unlike her. So the best thing that Mel's mom could do is get Raz to call Melanie because of course she's going to answer Raz's call. And when she didn't, that's when they knew that something was wrong. Think about your favorite singer right now, okay? Your favorite musician, your favorite something, just somebody you're really into, or your favorite YouTuber. Imagine you ran away from home and then all of a sudden you see your phone and he's calling. Of course you're going to answer. You're like, Mom, I'm coming home. She did not answer Raz's call. And this was very concerning for everyone. Raz even said in an interview that while she was calling, she was saying, come on, Melanie, where are you? Pick up the phone. And she was not answering. So after that, Mel's mom ends up calling Emma's house, the Niederbrock house. And this guy answers the phone and he says, oh yeah, they're out right now. Like, Deborah and the two girls, they went out to see a movie. And they called me earlier because their car broke down, but AAA's on the way. So just call back later. This makes Mel's mom feel a lot better. Like, okay, they went out to a movie and they're going to be back soon. Okay. So then she calls back the next day, or she calls back that night. And she calls, and she calls, and she calls, and nobody answers. And then the next day, she calls again in the morning. And that guy answers again. And he says, oh, yeah, they're just out. Yeah, they're out. I feel like they're going to be out pretty late today. But yeah, sorry, I didn't know it was urgent. I'll tell them to call when you get back. And Mel's mom is like, what the f***? So she's calling later. And nobody calls her back. She hasn't heard from the girls, no nothing. At the next point, she ends up calling Emma's dad. Because remember, I told you the divorce had already happened. The mom and dad are separated. They made a choice to take their daughter to this concert because they loved her and they wanted to do it together and they were still co-parenting her. But Mark, he lives somewhere else. Mel's mom ends up calling him and saying like, hey, where are the girls? And he's like, oh, I don't know. We dropped them off a day and a half ago. We got back okay. And she's like, they're not answering, and just one random dude is answering the phone. And so Mark's like, okay, all right, well, I'm on my way to work, so I'll go by and check it out. So this happened like around Richmond. This is where I'm from. And so Mark swings by the house just to like get confirmation that like everything's fine. And he says, yeah, I'll be there like within an hour. And so Mel's mom is waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And she starts to almost get mad. Like, what the is going on? Why is nobody answering? Why hasn't Emma answered me? Why hasn't Mel answered me? Where is Mark? Where is Deborah? I'm calling the police. So she calls the police and asks them to do a wellness check. The police show up, they get there, and this dude answers the door, and he's just like, oh, hey, they're out. They're gone right now. What's up? And the police are just like, okay, well, somebody's home, so I guess it's all right. Okay, I believe what happened was he walked up and he said he was the neighbor. This guy walks up and said he was the neighbor, and the people weren't home, that they had just left earlier. So that's what the police wrote down, and that's what they reported. While Raz and Sick are trying to find out what happened, they have reached out to all of the horrorcore fans, and one person came back to Raz and Sick, and he said, I spoke to Sam, and Sam says that he killed everyone. They hear this, the two singers, Raz and her co-singer, and they get some details, and they believe it. Because where are they? And that guy was weird, right? And that's what they do. They make music about horror, about murder, about killing people, about revenge, about power. And so a little bit later, Raz gets another call from the mother, Mel. And Sick describes this in an interview on another show that I watched. And he said that he had his phone, and back then he didn't mute it. He just kind of put it right up against his leg and held it down and told Raz, it's Mel's mom. What do I say? What do I do? And she's like, I don't know. And he said, I have to tell her. I'm not kidding. Homeboy said this. Like, buddy, it is not your responsibility to break the news of an unconfirmed murder to somebody's parent. But he held the phone like that. And then when he puts his ear back to the phone, the mother said, what the fuck do you know? And then he tells her, I'm so sorry, but I think your daughter is dead. And so he said in the interview that Mel's mom let out the most blood-curdling scream that he could still hear in his head to this day. And I believe it, because a grieving parent looking for their child for 3 days and holding out for hope is just pushing it all down, and trying to avoid the worst. And the minute that you hear it from a reliable source, of course, the first thing you're going to do is scream. They end up wanting to go back to the house at this point. But Sam McCroskey, as you guys might have expected, the perpetrator in question, is gone. He's no longer at the house. I'm going to show you guys exactly where they found him. They found Sam in the airport. This is an actual video of him asleep in the airport. He eventually left the house about 12 hours before his flight, and he fell asleep in the airport. And he was initially reported because a taxi driver said that he smelled so bad that they had to roll the windows down just to get him to the airport. People at the airport said that there was a man that smelled absolutely putrid, and it looked like he had gore on his body. So they promptly reported it to the police, and they said, this is the motherfucker that we're looking for. This is the actual raw video of Sam McCroskey getting picked up at the airport. Oh my God, I've been to this airport before. This is where I'm from. This is him getting picked up at the airport the day that he was trying to escape and get back to California. Everyone says that he smelled absolutely horrible this day because, as you guys probably know, because I've talked about it before, the smell of a deteriorating body is absolutely unmistakable. There's nothing in the world that smells like that. But let me explain. So after Sam was arrested, he immediately, he pretty much gave in. It wasn't that hard to get him to say things, and they got him to plead guilty and skip the trial in return for giving a full confession. So I'm going to tell you what happened that night, and it's all through Sam's confession, which they believe to be accurate because the forensic evidence pretty much matches everything. So on that night, when Emma, Mel, Deborah, and Sam all went back to the house, the girls, Mel and Emma, they were always doing their thing. They were best friends. They were just hanging out. And Sam had decided to go outside by himself that night. And the way Sam describes it is he was just drinking and he was smoking marijuana. I say marijuana because that's what was in the police report. And the police report also says prescription pills. So it is my understanding that he had a small cocktail of a little alcohol, some kind of pills, and some weed. Look, this isn't like LSD or some PCP shit. Sounds like to me that Sam was trying to numb something. And while he sat outside and he thought about the rejection that he was feeling, the pain that he was feeling, it was just all too much for him. And listen, all of us have been rejected before. I think so. There are parts of Sam's story that are relatable. But I urge you to take off your empathy cap for Sam because everything else is pretty normal. This part is not normal. While Sam sat outside and he thought about everything he was feeling, I think he reached into that safety, that kind of horrorcore, that identity, because that identity is very based around power, vengeance, violence, the assertion of power through violence. One of the most basic acquisitions of power, basic forms of like human defense. I say this all the time. Disassociating and violence are pre-programmed into us. Disassociating is like playing dead. Violence is it's like the animal kingdom. This is what we're essentially programmed to do. But it's up to us as humans to develop the communication skills and the critical thinking skills to not do stupid ass shit because we can't control our feelings. So please take your empathy cap off for Sam right now because everything else was relatable up until this point. Because that day he went into the backyard and grabbed a sledgehammer, a literal sledgehammer, and he saw that in the backyard. And I bet you Sam thought, oh yeah, this is gonna make me badass. Yeah, here it is. Here's my power. Here it is. This is how I'm gonna get revenge on everyone that hurt me. That's what he thought. Sam McCroskey took that sledgehammer and he walked into the house, and downstairs sleeping was Melanie Wells, and he crushed her skull so hard with one hit that he only hit her 1 or 2 times after that. And then afterwards, he went into the next room and he bludgeoned Emma to death, the girl that he had been talking to for a year with absolutely almost no empathy. I mean, obviously none. And then he went into the next room, and yes, while they all slept, he walked through this house and bludgeoned them to death with a sledgehammer. And it's so interesting to me that this guy thinks he's some badass motherfucker, but you killed these innocent women in their sleep because of your own little feelings. And he went upstairs and he bludgeoned Deborah as well with the sledgehammer. And afterwards, he dragged all of their bodies into the main living room and arranged them, and some people suspect that he might have taken photos or recorded his own little music videos in front of the bodies while he sat here in this delirium drinking and smoking weed, and everything was all fun and games until Emma's father shows up to check on them. And that day Mark was just going to work, and Mel had asked him to swing by and check on the girls, and he went into the house. And he never came out because he also had been bludgeoned to death by that same sledgehammer by Sam. I was listening to something too where Mels Mom, who was just trying to find her daughter, was so upset that she felt like she sent that man to the house. I can't imagine the guilt that she's feeling, letting her daughter go to the concert, knowing that Emma and her mother were murdered, feeling like she sent Mark to that house that day, you know? And there's way longer episodes on this too if you guys ever want to watch most of it, but this is pretty much the majority of the story. So Sam ended up giving a full confession to investigators, skipped trial, went straight to jail, no cap, no nothing. It's bye. I found a video on YouTube, and it's this guy that said that he was cellmates with Sam McCroskey. And I watched a bit of it, but I thought it was kind of interesting. I don't know about you guys, but Sam to me sounds like a poor communicator that internalized a lot of his feelings, masked things with rage and alcohol, and then when it came to a boiling point, when he least expected it, when he had all these fantasies about a person that he didn't even know and they didn't come true, and it was in fact quite the opposite, he snapped. And that's why I tell you these stories, because everything leading up to the murders happens to everyone. It really does. Let's watch the video. All right, so this is the video of the guy that shared a cell with Sam, and saw a little of this. I just thought it was really interesting. Let's go see.
A bit, especially on the news here in the state of Virginia, but tell us, the name of this guy that you were in the cell with.
His nickname was Psycho Sam. He goes by Richard Alden Samuel McCroskey. He brutally murdered a family of 4 in Farmville, Virginia with a split maul axe over his girlfriend posting something over Facebook, I believe. He went down there while they were sleeping, murdered them, slept with the bodies in the house for almost a week before the authorities were notified by the smell from the house.
That's why he smelled so bad. It was the bodies.
He was originally sentenced to death row, but had a good enough lawyer to where they gave him life sentences on all of them. He therefore received 4 life sentences plus 632 years.
What was it like going into the cell with this guy?
Any other time, I pretty much wouldn't be on edge, wouldn't be on my toes like I was this time, but this time, it scared me, it really did. I didn't know what to expect, didn't know what this dude was capable of, if he was in his right mind, should he be in a mental ward, should he even be in a prison? Where should this dude be? Or should I even be in this cell with this guy? That was a question that I asked myself for the next few days.
So you go into the cell.
Yes, it was said that in the reports. After he killed these people, first of all, he didn't shower at all for a week. Sam did not wash his hair, he did not wash his body, and he was just sitting there in a room for a week with these bodies just rotting around him. That's why the taxi driver had trouble taking him home. That's why he got pulled over at the airport, because they said this smelly ass man, get this smelly ass man.
Introduce yourself. Do you try to talk with this guy? Talk about that.
I introduced myself, let him know, man, I'm Pee-wee. My real name's David, but I've gone by Pee-wee the last 5 years of my life, since I've been locked up. He let me know his name's Psycho Sam. He let me know he wasn't ashamed to tell me what he did. He broke down everything. He said he did feel remorse for what he did. We sat down and talked a few times about it. He didn't like talking about it. He showed me pictures, black and white, of that night, the stuff that happened.
He didn't like talking about it.
Overall, living in a cell with dude, it was pretty creepy, but he was very respectful for the most part. You'll never really understand the life of a murderer or the life of somebody till you actually live with that person.
I've seen pictures of this guy. And like you said, he's around your age. He was a younger dude. He's doing multiple life sentences plus hundreds of years. Never coming home.
Dude, this is so interesting to me. Is it interesting to you guys? I wish we could get more stuff of people that shared a cellmate with somebody we've covered,
The type of dude who would definitely have some problems up in prison. He doesn't look like the type of guy who, would be okay. Was he respected? Did you ever see him having problems in there?
Yes, several times, but I never got involved with it because it was not my place to put myself into.
Yeah, they probably think he's a bitch.
Yes, because of the fact of what he did, but not what he did, how he did it, and when he did it while they were sleeping.
They didn't respect that.
They didn't respect that, and they didn't respect him.
Yeah,
so he's getting stored, and he's having problems up in there, and you're stuck in a cell with this dude.
And I'm stuck in a cell with this dude, but I'm not trying to sit back into the hole for another 5 months till I go home, and I needed to clear my head.
Talk about trying to go to sleep in a cell with the guy. You know, they tell you you're getting out of isolation. Hey, we're going to put you in a cell with a murderer. You didn't know you were getting put in the cell with probably the most high-profile guy at that prison.
Oh, no, definitely not. Normally, when I go to sleep at night, I do
Honestly,
sleep
true.
with the towel over my face to block the light because you have a light that they keep on so they can come around for count time. Well, in this particular cell, I never kept the blindfold on my face. I felt like I had to sleep with my eye halfway open, even when I was sleeping. But once I got to know him, I mean, that feeling was always there. It was always going to be there as long as I was in a cell with him. But for the most part, there was no more towels while I was in the room sleeping over my eyeballs. It was always my eyes wide awake, and me on point, and me crossing my T's and dotting my I's.
Damn.
I got a bunch of questions I want to ask you about this dude, and this one's not one that I had thought of, but I want to ask you this. You know, you go into a cell with a guy, and you automatically size that individual up, just in case things don't work out too well. You know, did you feel like if things got out of hand that, you know, you could handle yourself with this dude?
Yes, 100% without a doubt. I looked at, like you just said, you broke down everything word for word. I sized the dude up when I went into the cell, knowing what he was convicted of, knowing what could potentially happen while I was in there, what I need to learn how to do, what precautions I need to take. But yes, I did size him up and did figure out what was the best go route.
You, in the cell with this guy who had, you know, no release date at all. He was going to die in prison. How did he react to the fact, knowing that you were getting ready to go home?
Oh,
He said he was kind of accustomed to it because for the last 6 months while he was in that cell, they did nothing but put short-time people in there with him. So it played a big factor on him in his head at first, but he said he became accustomed to it.
Why
because
do you
he
guys think
realized
they
it's-
only put short-term people in Sam's room? I wonder why.
He's told me that I need to stay out of the way, get out of into society, straighten up, don't become what he did, or don't become what other people think I'm going to become. Prove everybody wrong.
Do you feel like this guy had any type of an impact?
That's interesting. I bet Sam really does believe that. That's interesting. That's what he said. He told him to get out and prove everyone wrong and basically be bad. I mean, probably a big part of it, I bet, is Sam was somebody other than who he was pretending to be, but he became who he was pretending to be. And now he has to serve life in prison with hundreds of people not respecting him, shitting on him, making fun of it. Like, holy shit. It's his own personal hell. He was so upset about that weekend with Emma, and now he's dealing with this times 20. Like, yeah, he is going to tell people, don't be like me. But that's interesting. That's very interesting.
I do feel like that I learned how to control my impulse a little better because I believe that's what he acted off of when he committed the acts of violence that he did.
He's out.
But I do feel like I have learned a lot about my impulse and a lot about my character just by listening to the story that he told and the things that he tried to tell me.
Kay said, yeah, the only way he's killing you is if you're asleep because he's a coward. Dude, they couldn't respond. They couldn't fend for themselves. They couldn't, dude, if they could have just yelled, like, stop, like, why are you doing it? Like, he might have even crumbled. Like, who knows, man? Like, there's just so many different angles from this case. Like, how do you deal with rejection? Who are you talking to online? How's your impulse control? Like, are you pretending to be somebody you're not? And when does the real you show up? There's just so many things wrapped up into this. And I don't know, this case really, really, really haunts me because he literally just walked through that house and murdered all of those women in their sleep. Yeah, of course nobody in jail respects you.